Hello everybody, this is Grame Anderson, and today I'm going to be looking at Framework. Now this is one of the latest games from Uwe Rosenberg. Now Uwe does seem to get an idea or a mechanism and create several games that are similar, or we can definitely see the refinement of the concept from game to game. Framework is a re-implementation of Nova Luna, which in itself is a re-implementation of Habitats. Now will I admit though, I have not played any of those earlier games, so I'm coming into this one without playing any of the predecessors, so I'm not going to be comparing this to any of its predecessors and how it plays. Now there is no theme to this game. It even says on the back of the box it's an abstract game, which I'm okay with. Now the goal of the game is to be the first player to place out all of your scoring pieces, and you're going to be doing that by drafting tiles, either for their frames, which you need to connect to each other to create chains of the same frame types, or for their scoring opportunities. Now it uses a drafting mechanism for player to choose the tiles during the round. Since this game is a re-implementation of a game that is well liked, I was actually looking forward to getting this one to the table. So, will this game be like a prize frame picture on your wall? Or will it be part of your next garage sale? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and we'll come back for my final thoughts on Framework. So here's Framework set up for 4 players. Each player has 22 tokens of their colors, and all 120 frame tiles are placed in the cloth bag. Now the goal of the game is to be the first player to place out all of your tokens on your Framework tiles. Since this game revolves around those tiles, let's take a closer look at them. There are 5 different frame colors, and each tile can have 0 to 3 frames. There can also be 0 to 3 task fields on a tile. The tasks on the tile will indicate the number and color of frames that must be adjacent horizontally or vertically in order to complete the task. The tasks fall into 4 different types. A single color task can only be completed by the number of frames adjacent, again horizontally or vertically, to that task. If a tile has multiple single color tasks, you can complete as many as you want and in any order. If they are bicolor tasks, they can be completed by a combination of the colors shown. So if it was a 6 green/yellow, you could use maybe 2 green and 4 yellow, or any other combination of those color frame tiles to complete that task. It's important that both colors must be connected to the task tile. Again, if there are multiple tasks on the same tile, they can be completed in any order. If the task is bicolored, but with a black line through the colors, you can only complete this task using one of those 2 colors. A combination of both colors is not allowed. The last type of task are the arrow tasks, where you must complete the left side of the arrow before you can do the right side of the arrow. On any of these tiles, you are not required to complete any of the tile tasks. There is no negatives for not completing tasks you have taken, just that you will not be able to place one of your tokens on the incomplete task. Let's go back to the gameplay. The active player will draw a number of tiles from the bag equal to the number of players plus 1. So for a 4-player game, 5 tiles will be drawn. Starting with the active player, each player will take one of their recently drawn tiles and immediately add it to their personal display. Any new tile, except of course the very first one, must be connected horizontally or vertically to a previously placed tile. When all players have taken a tile, the active player must take the final tile and immediately add it to their display. Once this is done, pass the bag to the next player, who now becomes the active player and draws out the tiles again. Now you're going to be placing these tiles in order to complete tasks. So let's move ahead a little in time to see a gameplay underway and how you claim task tiles. When you're placing your new tile, you'll be checking if it completes any of the tasks. By placing this tile here, you can see that it now completes this task over here. It is important to note that it is not only the frames directly adjacent to the task that count. When counting frames for a task, count all the frames that have at least one frame required by the task that are adjacent to each other, again horizontally or vertically. All tiles in a chain can help you complete your task as long as at least one of the parts of the chain is adjacent to the task tile. Whenever you complete a task, place one of your tokens on the task to mark it as complete. At any time during the game, a player can check over the tasks to see if any are complete, as placing a tile for one task may complete additional tasks, so you should always be keeping an eye on all the incomplete tasks to see if they were inadvertently completed by placing this new tile. If you discover a task at a later date that is complete, just make sure you put one of your tokens on it. A tile, before it is placed, can be rotated, you can even test fit as well, but as soon as it is placed, it cannot be moved for the rest of the game. The game is over when a player places their last token. As soon as they do that, the game is over and they win. Or, if the last tile is drawn from the bag, the final round begins. Finish the round as normal, and the player with the fewest remaining tokens is the winner. And that's how you play. Now let's get back to see what I thought about Framework. For theme and components, I'm just going to skip over the theme. It's an abstract game. The components themselves are decent. I didn't have any problems with them. The tiles are nice and easy to read. The bag is definitely big enough that you can get your hand in there without getting caught. And the wooden tokens work just as well too. Now there is a cheat sheet that comes with the game with how the different scoring tiles work, but I honestly found this wasn't needed. But it is for part of the solo game, so I do like that they didn't waste the other side. The components overall are good, no issues with them. Onto the gameplay, as you saw from the overview, it's super simple gameplay, and I feel that works perfectly for an abstract game. You want the basics to be, well, basic. You take a tile, add it to your display. But the enjoyable part is that figuring out the best place for every tile. And that thought process is where I really enjoyed this game because it goes so well with the overall game arc. At the beginning of the game, it seems slow. No one is putting on any scoring tokens. But that starts to ramp up as the game goes on. And those tile placements become more and more critical. At the beginning of the game, you're working on maybe 1 or 2 different scoring tiles. But soon you may be trying to finish off 4, 5, or 6 scoring tiles. So which tile is best? The ones with the most frames, right? Well, if you have no scoring tasks, then it really doesn't matter how many frames you have. And the opposite is true as well. Having lots of tasks, but only a few frames is just as bad. So you're always trying to balance when picking your next tile. What is more important? A tile that can make a chain longer, but doesn't finish any obvious tasks that you have? Or a scoring tile that has maybe already half of the completed requirements? And I found the drafting of the tiles works so well in that decision making. If you're the first player, it's great. You get the exact tile you want from the ones flipped over from the bag, and you place it right away. Although you do get the first pick, you also have to place the leftover tile, and I think that's where the key is. And not blocking yourself from completing tasks is always a bit tricky later on in the game, and you generally have areas that you're looking to expand or looking for just the right piece. So being forced to add a tile you may not want to your display, definitely I felt kind of counterbalanced the bonus from going first. So I thought that worked really well. The game is, I felt, pretty much multiplayer solitaire, and I found it less frustrating at the lower player counts, and that you're probably more likely to be able to get the tiles that you needed. And when I say frustrating at higher player counts, for me it was kind of a good frustration. You know, someone took my perfect tile. So how am I going to pivot with those tiles that are left for me to pick? Because the bag draw is random. You have to be able to be taking very tactical moves. You may have a plan to build, let's say, a large red chain, but it's really going to depend on the tile draw and what other people's take. So, would I recommend this game? Yes, I definitely would. As I said in the intro, I've not played the games that this is a real implementation of, but I thought this one worked extremely well. It has a very low rules overhead, and you're up and playing in just a few minutes. I felt the game had a great arc to it. At the beginning, you're just placing tiles, but as the game goes on, you really start to think over every tile that you pick and where you're going to place it. And the game lasts a good amount of time, around 20 to 30 minutes of my play. And I often felt in my games the last few minutes were looking at how the tokens my opponents had and feeling tense that they were pretty close to winning. I really enjoyed the simple drafting mechanism. The fact that the first player ends up with 2 tiles, one that they want and one that they may not want at all, I felt worked extremely well to balance that out. On the downside, it is pretty much multiplayer solitaire. Taking a tile to hurt an opponent is probably hurting yourself as well. The level of frustration can vary. Sometimes you're just sitting there waiting for a red frame to show up, and they don't show up for a round or 2. And not everyone found that as enjoyable as I did. But overall, I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10 and Dice Tower seal of approval. This is a puzzly abstract game that I just put my head down and enjoyed working on the puzzle in front of me. Combined with that drafting mechanism made my plays thoroughly enjoyable. But since it really was, in my plays anyway, a pretty silent multiplayer solitaire game, it may not be the game I reach for to get a game night going, but one I will happily pull off the shelf when the mood strikes us. And that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.